I had the greatest pleasure of sitting down with Josiah and the Bonnevilles to talk about music, life, chasing your dreams, among other things. Josiah, going into this conversation, felt like a genuine person just based off of his social media accounts. After having this conversation, I feel even more strongly about those thoughts. Josiah has two new songs out, one called I Am Appalachia and the other one called Tennessee Song. I hope you'll take the time to listen to those songs as well as the conversation him and I had. Yeah, man. So looking at your social media, it looks like the past like 8 to 12 months have kind of been a pivotal moment for you. You talk a lot about how you left bartending, working at a warehouse, and
Mm.
kind of being full time musician. Can you kind of walk us through these past, 8, 12 months, what that kind of meant for you?
Yeah, well, it goes back a couple years. I've had 3 record deals. The 3rd one that I signed was in 2019, right before the pandemic started, and when that deal ended, just a lot of crazy stuff happened that basically got me locked in that record deal for a couple of years where I couldn't release any music, I couldn't do anything. And so it was a few months after the pandemic, and I just started to look around and I was like, uh-oh, we're gonna be in trouble. And so the restaurants and stuff weren't hiring. When I was younger, I worked in restaurants and I have throughout the years when I've had to. And so I had no idea what to do. And so I found this warehouse, this Amazon warehouse out in Lebanon, and I did the application online. They hired me there. I was celebrating because I needed money so bad. So I was living, like 45 to 50 minutes away from this warehouse. So I would go out there, drive. I did that for I can't remember how long exactly, but I know that was like when the weather was starting to get cold. And by the time the weather was starting to get warm again the next year, I was thinking I really, would love to not be in this warehouse during the day. So I found a job bartending, and for a little bit of time in the middle, I was doing both for a few weeks, and that was a really crazy schedule. And then I transitioned over to the bartending, and yeah, to be honest, I was just waiting for that deal to kind of expire, and when it finally did, I was really nervous about letting go of the bartending job, but I knew here's my mindset toward it, Matt. I knew that anything in life that you wanna do for a living is hard. Like, look at the guys in the NBA, okay? You can devote your whole life to something and still not be the greatest at it. I knew that I wasn't gonna have another chance to get back into music unless I went full time again. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know how successful I could be at it, but I knew that I had to kinda take that chance again and at least give myself a shot, and I knew I couldn't do it by splitting time with bartending. So what I did was my manager, I gotta give him all the credit here because he signed me to my 2nd record deal. His name's Jeremy Maciak, and we've stayed in touch even though we haven't always agreed on kind of how to do things. And I called him up and I said, "Jeremy, what should I do here?" And he's like, "You need to stop everything you're doing and just get on TikTok and Reels and just start posting there." And I did, and, it took a little bit of time to get things going, but I started to really enjoy that process because I found that, the stuff was getting shown to new people, whereas before my experience was, you know, when I started doing music, you would post something and it would get shown to your people in a timeline order. Okay, I'm gonna give away my age here. They would show it in a timeline order.
Right.
And then after that, they made a big change. They're like, "No, we're not gonna do that anymore. We're gonna show it based on what we think people are interested in." So 5, 6 years ago, you could be an artist with, let's say you got 10,000 followers. Your stuff's never getting shown to more than 500 people. So when I started using TikTok and I started to see, hey, I've got, 250 followers on here, and I just posted this song that got shown to 2,000 people. And I know those are new. I got so excited and I started to double down and really go into it. And, you know, just started doing some covers, taking these walks in the morning to figure out what I could do that, to get myself back in it all and just started to develop my voice. And so, yeah, that's where we've been for the last 9 months. And you know, it's been incredible.
Yeah. So in that social media mindset, I've seen you super embraced it. Seems like you got a pretty good community of people that are, constantly reaching out and, everybody's kind of
Mm,
sharing your new Tennessee song and it's
yeah,
cool to see.
yeah.
So in that kind of mindset, kind of wanted to talk about someone you look up to in the industry. So a lot of people get asked, inspiration, but I kind of saw that moment you kind of had with Zach Bryan on the one post that I had done, and I thought that was a super cool moment. And yeah, just want your thoughts on that, and maybe somebody you kind of look up to in the industry, and try to work towards.
I attribute that moment to you, by the way, because, you posted that, I reposted that, that's what he responded to. So, dude, I got you to thank for that. And, it's really hard to imagine answering that question any other way than saying, Zach Bryan as someone I think any artist would look up to. There's a couple things about Zach that I find to be so special. And let's just put aside the immense like talent. Because when I first heard Zach, the songs floored me. It just made me as a writer, you hear things where they just immediately make you wanna pick up a guitar, and Zach Bryan was that for me. It was like a jolt of electricity in 2019. I sent him a message on Instagram right away, told him, "You ever come through Nashville, bro, you got friends, like, we love you." It was awesome. But let's put that aside, and let's just look at what Zach's doing from the standpoint of releasing music, like, just letting it fire all the time, not second guessing himself. Me, I'm a pretty self-conscious person, and I'm a perfectionist. I've had long periods in my life where I just haven't felt good enough and haven't felt like things were up to par for me, and I just stopped releasing. I love that Zach is just firing all the time. He's like, "This is where I'm at. These are the songs." I love that, and then you gotta look at the live, what he's doing in the live arena as far as making tickets affordable. I grew up dirt poor in East Tennessee. I could not afford to go to any of these concerts. I couldn't afford to go to concerts back then, let alone now. The prices are incredibly high and I think unreasonable in a lot of scenarios. So I get the sense, I mean, everything just points to Zach loving the music and the relationship with the fan more than the profits that can be made through music. So I love it, man. I look up to him big time.
Yeah, that was super cool for me as someone who, in a lot of aspects, I grew up in a not a great area, not a great, type of deal as well. Seeing that moment between you guys was like super cool for me as someone
Mm.
who had never really had a whole lot to show for himself either. And then I find myself in these spots where, seeing artists kind of connect and being able to connect myself with artists is
Yeah.
been super cool. Super, super cool. So kind of going back to your childhood, and what kind of music did you guys was playing in your household growing up? So like I grew up, my parents was like 90s country, right? So I
Okay.
was listening to like Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, those kind of people all the time. And then kind of grew into my own of like classic rock and, went down the road from there. So does the music you grew up listening to influence what you do now, or is it kind of, changed throughout time and you kind of found your own little niche?
Yeah, it does a little bit of all of that. Just like you, we're very similar. I grew up, it's like, "Don't Take the Girl," and I think I'm on a roll here in Little Rock. Like, that's what was played in the radio. All the '90s country, little bit of classic rock. When me and my brother started to drive, we started to drive ourselves to school. There was a station called, I think it was 103.5, and it was the classic, the classic rock, which we loved. Then I got into a bunch of Britpop, Blur, Echo and the Bunnymen, Coldplay, Keen. I love that stuff. I started out playing piano when I
Okay.
was, started playing piano when I was 8. All the songs I wrote were kind of piano based early on. And then it was later on, I want to say kind of my early 20s where I discovered Townes Van Zandt, Leonard Cohen, Bob Dylan, which really kind of brought me in the back door around to Appalachian and more like the older country, the stuff that I hold so dear. But to me, when I hear like Appalachian music, I guess the way that I would describe that is it just deals in truths. It deals with the truth of life. It's not trying to, it's less of kind of party music, music to drink beer to, and it's more of music to actually evaluate your life to, and that's what I love about this Appalachian music scene. I would
Mm,
say that no matter what style of music I liked, from the time I was 13, I wanted to write songs about my life, like the good, the bad, the ugly. Never wanted to, like, make a big chorus that people could just sing along to and repeat. I just wanted to write about my life. So,
mm.
I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think your music definitely echoes that. You think so? I always get kind of blurred in the lines of, Americana, country folk,
Mm.
and like this kind of like you're calling it Appalachia. So Is it in that realm, right? It's obviously in that realm, but do you consider yourself more Appalachia than Americana or more country folk? Because definitely in the lines of all that, but you consider yourself one more than the other?
It's so interesting. I just don't think I would put a name on it. I try to just deal in truth, you know? I'm from the country, so it's always gonna sound a little bit country. It's
Right.
kind of the way I think about it, and I sing about Appalachia, so that to me makes it Appalachian. I really connect with the lyrics of a song. So for me, when I'm gonna classify something as one thing or the other, I'm gonna look at it lyrically first. So I think I don't know if there's a clear answer, you know, and you can look at other artists. I mean, Zach's an example of this too. Where does it live? I've been very blessed to be allowed into the country ecosystem where the blogs are writing about the music. It's an incredible honor to me. I never thought for a minute I'd ever get to live in any of those lanes. So I'm very happy to kind of hitch my wagon to what country is, because they're allowing me in. So I would never say I'm not country, but I don't know if I could exactly just put an easy label on it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I definitely find your music, you know, kind of like sitting like I'm from, middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. So from the sticks, kind of grew up in the sticks. So that music is like sitting on the back porch, kind of listening music. And for me, it's always been, it feels like home, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
In terms of, your social media presence and your label deals, are you currently running indie, so to speak, or are you looking for a label deal? You're kind of done with those having some bad taste in your mouth, or
So I've tried to make it a really strong daily effort and focus to not come off as bitter toward labels. And I don't want to be the anti-label guy. And I don't want my music to be just good for indie music. I want to give everything that I have to this, and I want the music to be, of the quality that you can find from any artist on any label. We've had people reach out, and to which I've responded to all of them, and I've said, I think at this moment I'm not seeking out a deal. I've kind of established with the people that are following along and listening that I don't want anything to come between sort of this system that we've got, and that's that I sit here in this room, write something that I'm feeling, I share it. If it seems like a lot of people want that, then I just take that straight to production and I just finish it and I get it straight out to people right away. 'Cause I don't believe anymore that there's some promo plan that somebody can give me that's better than me just telling people what a song's about, you know? I think the social media aspect of things like that, it kind of has become the job, you know? So rather than thinking, "Oh, well, a label could do this for me or do that for me," I've been on the labels and I've seen, like, it just sometimes it can just create a layer between you and what needs to be done by expecting somebody else to kind of make the songs work. So I kinda like this where I wake up every day and I'm like, "There's no cavalry's coming," you know? You gotta get that video up, you gotta finish that song, and you gotta get it up. So, I'm so grateful to everybody that's reached out from labels and stuff, and I would never rule it out down the line if the moment is right, but at the moment, we're not seeking anything.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. From what I've gathered, I mean, especially in an age like today, like you're right, your own advocate and like in a social media world where you can get it out to so many people, I think it's super
Yeah.
worthwhile to explore that. So I think we can't know the full Josiah story, right, without talking about American Idol at some point, right?
Okay.
So like I wanted to avoid it for a while, honestly, but I'm
Okay.
so genuinely curious. So that was you were, a teenager when that took place. Just kind of walk us through that experience. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm sure you've talked about it, ad
Yeah.
nauseum with people,
Yeah.
but it's still super curious on it.
I'll see if I can drop you some new info, Matt, that nobody else has.
Okay.
I was yeah, I dropped out of high school at 17. I moved to Texas to work at a, like, fruit and vegetable packing plant, and my mother called me, and she was me and my mother loved watching American Idol, and she was like, "They're auditioning in Atlanta," and she might have even bought me, like, a little motel room or something there because she didn't know where I was staying. I'd been sleeping in my car. really just roughing it out there. And so I go to Atlanta, I tried out, I made it on. It was the original 3 judges, so it's Paula, Randy, Simon, and yeah, you do the 5 opening stages, and then finally you get in front of the judges, they send me through. It was, just a whirlwind experience for me, just a kid as green as you can be from East Tennessee, and so young as well. I loved the music, with all my heart, but I kind of didn't know how to deal with that sort of all of that happening at once. It was pretty crazy. I remember the producers got pretty mad at me because I had not wanted the band to play a song a certain way, and they didn't wanna work with me on the arrangement, and so I mean, they're looking at me like, "Who's this 17-year-old kid trying to tell us how to arrange this song?" But I'm like, "I know the way that I want it to sound." And then, it ended. I signed a deal with Warner Brothers right afterward. I actually went to London to make my first record out in the UK. I worked with a producer named Dave Costin, but I was not handling myself very well. I was drinking a lot at the time. I've struggled with addiction quite a bit throughout the years, and it kinda started at this point. I was also very self-conscious about my time on that show. So, when you ask also, who I look up to, Morgan Wallen would be a great example of somebody who he was on The Voice, and he had albums out before that didn't set the world on fire. He just kept releasing as well. I'm very inspired by that because for me, for 4 or 5 years, I didn't wanna release anything. I wanted people to forget that I had been on that show. I felt like there was kind of like it was a scent that was on me, or people, like,
Mm.
thought of me as Josiah from that show, and I kind of had a bad just I don't know. It was just something that I thought very deeply about, and, it took me a long time to kinda shake that concept and just, get to work and keep releasing music and not worried about it.
So you dropped out of high school. You're obviously self-taught
Yeah.
in music and self-taught with, all of that kind of stuff. Has that, you think given you different perspective on your music or how to, approach it as opposed to someone who maybe, went to school or had some classical training in it? Do you think that that sets you apart or you think that is just kind of individualistic in terms of, whoever it may be?
I think my path has set me ahead from, like, a creative standpoint where, of the less voices you have involved, I think the more original things are gonna be because 'cause you're not whittling it down to try to make it work for a large amount of people. So I think in that regard, I protected myself from not letting myself get too diluted. But where I really hurt myself, Matt, was that I had no discipline. So all the things you need when you go to school or when you go to a job, which is, yeah, you gotta show up. Maybe you don't feel like it, but you gotta show up and you gotta do the work and you gotta be present, and it's not always gonna be fun. That is what I had no concept of as a 17 or 18-year-old. I was just a loose cannon, running wild, writing songs. I was gonna do life my way. So I think I've definitely I mean, you can see it's taken me this long. I'm about to be 34 in 3 days, and it's taken me this long to figure out how to get a work ethic together around it? So, yeah, I would say it's helped and hurt.
Okay. Well, I mean, let me be the first happy early birthday.
Thank
But
you.
so I'll be honest, I do admire and super respect like having so I currently work in a warehouse myself and am trying to, make something of this full time eventually. But so I super respect and admire kind of you coming from those kind of roots and really committing to doing this. So you have an upcoming EP, Tennessee, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So what can fans of Josiah and the Bonnevilles expect from that?
So, we're gonna do 2 EPs, and then they're coming up. I have them both recorded. So, from the Tennessee EP, we released the Tennessee song, first time ever getting on New Music Friday. Apple put it on 6 or 7 playlists, which it's just unbelievable. I wrote this song when I was in London at the end of this very last record deal, and everything was going bad. I missed Tennessee so much, and I wrote it. I didn't think it was any good. I thought it was a song I would just kinda sing to myself at times because I have some songs like that that I just know are kinda personal songs. So to have that song be on all these playlists has been a real dream come true to me. The rest of that EP is gonna round out the story of how I got back. There's a song, which actually I've had for a little bit of time. It's one of the last songs I got to play my mother before she passed away, called I Am Appalachia, and that's about, running away from that area that I grew up in and knowing that I had to return. And then the last song on it's gonna be called Back to Tennessee, which is about kind of that moment of pretty much the same thing, but from a different perspective of nothing's working and the boxes are packed, and you're just basically running back home with your tail tucked between your legs because you've tried it and you've kind of failed. It's facing a lot of failure. I feel like that this EP is, but in a triumphant way to me because you know I feel here in this place where I belong that I'm capable of withstanding the highs and lows of life because they're going to come. And it's hard enough just living and breathing and, like, you know, life is hard enough on its own. So to be insulated, to be here in a place that I love, where I do have friends and I do have family is very huge. So that's what it signifies to me, and I hope people will be able to sense that through the EP.
So you talk about getting back to that support system and having those friends and family, and has obviously your family been super supportive of all this and everything you've kind of gone through? I mean, has that support always been there? Is it a struggle at times? Have you struggled to see it at times? Obviously, we go through this mental health thing where we have the talent or we have the ability, but we struggle to see it. And even though our support system might be rooting us on, it's easy to get in your own head and push that support away or push it down. And has it been easier or harder since you've been back in that sense?
I would say, my experience with my family is very interesting. They are amazing people, the most loving people you can find. For me, I've never felt that I wasn't seen or that I wasn't loved, and was always, very well taken care of, even though we were poor. But I did when I was younger, I'll be honest with you, there were times where, you know, it's not that I looked down on him, but I resented the fact that my family didn't know anything about what I wanted to do. They didn't know anything about business, and I was out in, LA or wherever I was, just burning bridges left, right, and center because I had no concept of how to deal with any sort of relationship that involves working together and kind of business or, my family is just very simple. So they were all, my dad worked in the furniture factories in East Tennessee, had his boss, he listened to the boss. So the kind of relationships I have over a long period of time learned how to build and learn how to maintain. It took a long time for me to figure out how to do that. And so I felt, I always loved my family. They were never able to support, financially, but they always loved me. And even if they didn't understand what I was doing most of the time, then especially now with Spotify and all this stuff and, you know, if you tell somebody in East Tennessee you signed to a label, they'll be over the moon, Well, I've had 3 now, and I'm like, "Well, I know it's not quite all it's cracked up to be," I would say I love my family. What they've given me, in love makes up for everything that they don't know about the other things. And my friends here in Nashville are just amazing. We went to high school together, so nobody's in music, they're engineers. We'll go play, basketball out at the court down the street or go over to the YMCA or something, and we'll sit around a fire. So it's very good. I like my regular people, I'm not an industry man. You will not
Right.
find me at a cocktail party in LA ever. It's just not what I like.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, like I said, growing up around where I grew up, that's what life is around here. So I'm curious so Josiah and the Bonnevilles, where does the Bonnevilles come from?
So originally, I had a so after American Idol, since I was living in my car had broken down. A dealership gave me a Pontiac Bonneville. It was a 2000 Pontiac Bonneville. Thing was awesome. It had like leather
Mm,
seats, power windows, and I just drove the wheels off that thing. By the time I started this project, I had a guy playing guitar, a guy playing bass. There were two really tall guys. Now, don't tell anybody, but I'm not the tallest guy in the world. 2 really tall guys, and I would say and the car was breaking down at the same time, and I was like, "Why don't we just name it Josiah and the Bonnevilles? Because you guys are two big dudes, the car's breaking down." And that's how it started. I ended up going on a couple tours solo just because of the nature of the finances of touring. It can be expensive to do with the band if you don't have, a label with tour support or just whatever the case may be. And they were both a little bit older than me, so the band just kind of drifted apart. We didn't break up, but the original 3, we just kind of agreed that it was better left for them to do their thing and for me to kinda carry the project solo. So, for a long time, I didn't know what the Bonnevilles was. People would ask me that question, and I would say I never knew how to answer. I was self-conscious. I'd go on stage and play shows with this band name, and it was a few months ago, and somebody on TikTok said, "Can I be a Bonneville?" And a light just went on in my head. I responded back, I said, "Yes, you can be bottom," and I just knew it right away. I was like, "This is perfect because it's me in this bedroom. The only reason I get to do this for a living is because of everybody listening." So I made stickers that said, "I'm a Bonneville." I sent them out with we did a T-shirt run. I sent them out with every T-shirt, and I'm just gonna keep reinforcing this, Matt, till the day I die, that it is that is what it is. It's me and it's the people that are allowing me to do this, and it can't work without it couldn't work without that half.
Yeah. No, yeah, I love that. That's awesome,
Yeah,
honestly, and super, like, organic on how that happened. That's super cool.
beautiful.
So, what a couple more questions here before we wrap up, but
Okay.
so what is your favorite song that you've ever made or put out? So, not necessarily, like, your most popular song. What's something, you listen to and you're just super proud of it, super happy with what came of it?
I would say for me, that's a song called Old Tin Can. It's a song I woke up one morning in East Tennessee. I was staying at my grandma's house where my grandma and my dad live. I woke up in the one morning and I had just a melody and the idea in my head. I was gonna take my other grandma up to see where my mother's buried. My mother's buried on the side of a mountain. Okay, like no lie, it's behind a couple of trailers. There's a dirt road that, like, grows up sometimes, and, like, if it's raining, you can't get up there. The day she was buried, it was raining. People are slipping and, like, falling down
Oh,
the side
no.
of the mountain. So, my grandma's joke is that my mother, is or somebody joked that she's, complicated even in death, my mother. I have a little, like, metal kinda can. I think it's an old lunchbox, and I leave it up there, and I've always whenever I've gotten music done, she passed away in 2009. It was before I got my first record out with Warner Brothers, and we were trying like hell to get the record out while she was alive. The label was trying, we were all trying, but she never got to see that first album come out. So, from then on, I would take my CDs, and I would put them in this old kinda tin can about where she's buried, and I was taking my grandma. I had a new CD of some burned music that I did, and I just woke up and I had it in my head. I stepped out on the front porch to grab a guitar. I tried to write it. I couldn't write it. I'm just bawling. Like, I can't even sing the words. It took me maybe 3 months to be able to actually get it all. I wrote it that morning, like, down on paper, but it took me, like, 3 months to be able to actually sing the damn song, and I sang it 4 times in the garage, and I was like, I can't do it anymore, I'm done." And that's one of those takes is one of the ones that's the one that come out that has come out. So, and it's, for me, I would say when I think of it and when other artists ask me for advice these days, I just think of that song, which I don't think it got put on any playlist. I think, day one, it maybe got 150 streams or something like that. And it still doesn't set the world on fire streams wise, but that to me embodies the reason why I do it. It's my way to make sense of my life. So old tin can, very, very special one to me.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I could clearly understand why. So, what about a song you've had on repeat lately? Maybe not one of your songs, but
Hey,
a song by somebody else you just can't get enough of.
dude, there's a girl. I'm curious if you've heard of this girl. Her name's Sarah Klang. Have you heard of Sarah Klang?
I don't think, no.
Dude, you gotta go. You're the perfect person to listen to this. Sarah Klang Canyon. So the song is called Canyon. The girl's name is Sarah Klang. It is some of the best music I've heard in years, and nobody knows about it. Last time I checked, she had like 300, 280 or 300K monthly listeners on Spotify. I found her because my girlfriend we made a playlist and she put this song called Ghost Killer on it, but Sarah Clay Canyon, it's a incredible vibe. You can work out to it, you can listen to it driving, you can put it on in the background. It's great if you're hanging out, like, with your girlfriend or with your partner or whoever. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a listen for
Yeah.
sure. So, I guess wrapping up, what is one piece of advice you'd give to artists out there, to anybody really just trying to commit or, make it full time doing something that they enjoy rather than maybe working that warehouse job or working that job that's paying the bills?
So, I would say the number one thing that changed my life and was I'm trying to think of how to put it correctly, is that I decided that I was gonna tell myself every day that I was a musician. And the way that I would explain that to people is that, like, failure has got to be an option. Have you ever watched the Bulls documentary about the Michael Jordan and the Bulls and them?
Yeah.
There was a moment where Phil Jackson sat down the team and he was like, "You guys may lose." And that hit me powerfully when he said that, because you think of winning as just confidence. You think of, Morgan Wallen on stage crushing beer cans against his head, forming the crowd, and you just think, "Oh, winners always win." But it's not true. Like, there will be failure. But I try to tell myself every day that I am a musician, no matter who streams it, no matter who does this or that. If you love something and you want to be it, and you're willing to kind of navigate the hard times and just keep firing, I feel like that's the number one step. It may not mean that it'll lead to, for everybody to make it to where they're getting to, but I feel like that's the number one step to say, like, this is what I am, win, lose, or draw on a daily basis. And to wake up and keep doing it. The second part of that would be that the public's memory of failure is very short. People generally only remember your wins. So, with TikTok too, man, like, you can put out 18 in a row and they don't do anything, and you put out another one. No one's looking back to say, "Oh, look how what a loser this guy is because of all these ones that didn't work." Nobody's doing that, you know? So, that's what I try to tell as many people as I can. Like, if you wanna be it, be it. And there'll be failures, but just keep firing away, and eventually you'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't agree more, man. Like, in that same sense for me, like, this has been a year coming for me that I've been doing this kind of thing, and it's never would have guessed a year ago that I'd be in this kind of spot. So
Yeah.
couldn't agree more with that. So I'm gonna give you a chance, like, let everybody know what you got coming up, kind of plug what you want to plug, and then
Okay.
call it.
Amazing. Yeah. So we got this Tennessee EP. I can't say too much. There is something big coming. There's a couple big things coming up. So Tennessee EP, there's going to be another EP that's going to come out that I'm actually can't give you the name for yet, because I'm going to let people on my Patreon vote for the title of this EP. There's two options that I'm going to give them in the pay in my pay on my Patreon, which in lieu of a label is how I've been funding a good portion of being able to make the stuff made. I'm starting now to do basically a how to. So how I record in Logic, some of my songwriting techniques, my vocal chain, how I master stuff, what distribution I use, how I get songs basically from the TikTok tease to the final product. I've opened up a new tier there where I'm sharing all this info. So each month I post a video for anybody who wants to check that out. They're welcome to come and just see how I'm doing it, which I think I've got a pretty good way of doing it that's not complex at all. Because I don't know how to do a lot of things. So I just bust it mostly. But there's that, and then there's this EP that I'm very excited about, and then I'm working on new music. So, there's some very exciting stuff coming later this year, just in regards to getting more music done.
Cool, awesome, man. We'll have to. I'll make sure I get the link to your Patreon in the show notes. And man, I can't thank you enough for being on here. And
It's an honor, man. Honor for me.
nothing but good vibes for you going forward, man. Looking
Dude,
forward to
thanks
see what you're
so
putting
much.
out.
Dude, I believe in you. Send this to me when you've got it. I can't wait to hear it.
Absolutely, man. I
All
definitely
right.
will.